Hi, the SI meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, December 4th. Well, quite an interesting situation setting up for the Mid-Atlantic region for Sunday into Monday. We've talked all week about a bitter cold Arctic air mass that is moving across the U.S., first affecting the Pacific Northwest, then the Rocky Mountain states and the northern plains. The brunt of that cold air mass will be felt out in that part of the country from the northern plains to the southern Rockies, as it'll lose some of its punch coming to the south and east, running into an upper level ridge along the southeastern U.S. As a result, the Arctic front, which is at the leading edge of that Arctic air mass, will indeed pass through the Mid-Atlantic region by the weekend, but then it'll stall out in kind of a southwest to northeast fashion over the weekend, and that will allow wave after wave of low pressure to ride up along that temperature gradient associated with that frontal boundary zone. Looks like by Sunday, very strong high pressure will move to the north of the Mid-Atlantic region into New England or southeastern part of Canada, anchoring a very cold air mass. And situations like that often spell trouble for the Mid-Atlantic region when moisture rides north into the region, as it looks like it will do on Sunday. You have low-level, very dense and cold Arctic air, anchored again by that strong high pressure that kind of gets trapped east of the Appalachian Mountains, even along the big cities of the I-95 corridor. It could be some cold air damming setting up for Sunday, and once that moisture arrives, it'll be cold enough for ice and perhaps even snow in some of the big cities for a several-hour period before ultimately milder air wins out and all of the precipitation should change over to rain. But again, there's a significant period of snow and or ice possible on Sunday, even in the big cities along the I-95 corridor, and we'll focus in on this situation over the next several minutes. Here's the latest forecast map. This is the 12Z GFS model run forecast map for Sunday morning. We'll look at 6-hour increments from Sunday morning to Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and then early morning hours on Monday. First, at the surface, we have the strong high pressure again moving into the northeastern part of the country, southeastern part of Canada. The isobars here, which are represented by these black lines, kind of have a kink to them, and that is a cold air damming situation. Basically what happens is at the low levels of the atmosphere, very cold Arctic air moves southeast of on the eastern side of the Appalachian Mountains and kind of gets trapped there as moisture rides up out of the southwest. That can spell an ice storm for many parts of the Mid-Atlantic region. Indeed, that could happen in places like central Pennsylvania, especially northeastern Pennsylvania also. So we have a cold air damming situation setting up Sunday morning with, again, a very strong and important high pressure system just to the north. Notice precipitation is just now reaching the D.C. area come Sunday morning. Now this blue line, we've talked about this many times here at the SIweather.com. This kind of represents a range snow line. It's what's known as the 540 thickness line, and it often is a range snow line. It tends to show not only temperatures at the surface, but really from the surface all the way up, well up in the atmosphere, what the temperature pattern is. And we'll see that this range snow line does not really advance any farther south than what appears here on Sunday morning down into the southern part of Pennsylvania. Now let's move ahead 6 hours. Well, 6 hours later, this is early afternoon. Notice that range snow line actually starts turning a little bit farther to the north, maybe now in central Pennsylvania as opposed to southern Pennsylvania. Still very apparent cold air damming situation here into the early afternoon hours on Sunday. Now precipitation has reached just south of the New York City region by early afternoon. Again, could be in the form of snow and or ice at this time in the big cities from D.C. to Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City. Now here's 6 hours later, Sunday evening. High pressure still anchored over the southeastern part of Canada. Still some signs of cold air damming. Notice this blue line here goes all the way up to the north in northern Pennsylvania. What that's indicating to me is we're warming up here along the I-95 corridor at the upper levels, but we'll see in a moment that the lower levels take a while to warm above freezing, and that therein lies the potential for several hours of icing even in the big cities on Sunday. Let's now jump ahead to the late night on early Monday morning. Finally, by late night, this is after midnight, low pressure starting to show up over the Ohio Valley. That's helping to push milder air even farther to the north, especially in the upper part of the atmosphere. By this time, most likely all precipitation will be in the form of rain along the I-95 corridor. Still could be some pockets of below freezing in central Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania, but for the most part, it's a rain event come Sunday night into the early part of Monday morning. Now let's take a look at the GFS forecast maps for the surface temperature pattern. Here's the latest forecast map from the 12Z GFS model run for Sunday morning. And what we're seeing here, these lines represent temperatures at just about the surface level. This purple line right in here represents the 0 degrees Celsius line, or the freezing line right here. Now notice it's way down here in southeastern Virginia come Sunday morning. That is the surface freezing temperature. Even though at the upper levels there's some warmer air, this is the reason why there's a potential ice event, at least for several hours, even in the big cities on Sunday, because that strong Arctic high up to the north and east is anchoring in very cold and dense low-level Arctic air that slides east of the Appalachians. And when the precipitation begins on Sunday morning, it looks like we'll certainly be at or below freezing, even down as far as Washington, D.C. area. Now, 6 hours later, this is early Sunday afternoon. That freezing line is still pretty far to the south here, cutting across the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula and then across into eastern Virginia. So even at this time, there's still perhaps at or below freezing temperatures down into the Washington, D.C. area. Now, this is eroding away. That low-level air is gradually eroding away at this time, but it certainly spells the possibility of a several-hour period of something frozen in the big cities, either in the form of ice, snow, or a combination of the two. Well, here's the early evening temperature forecast map by the latest GFS model, and by this time, that freezing line at the surface is now cutting across southern New Jersey, right around Philadelphia, and just to the north and west of the Washington, D.C. area. And at this time, certainly the ice or snow, any ice or snow that's falling at this time should change over to plain rain from this time later on. Let's now jump ahead 6 hours later. This is 6 hours later, early morning hours on Monday after midnight. That freezing line at the surface now has jumped all the way up to the New York City region, down and cutting across central Pennsylvania to the north and west of Philadelphia, and certainly to the north and west of D.C. at this time. So this certainly is setting up a potential ice event, maybe some snow as well, for a several-hour period on Sunday from D.C. all the way up to New York City, and we'll, of course, monitor this. Before we go away, let's take a look at the very latest 12Z Canadian model forecast. Well, what we have here is the very latest Canadian model forecast, and it has a color-coded depiction of the precipitation type here, where blue is snow, and the pinks and reds are a mixed frozen type precipitation, sleet, freezing, rain. So we'll monitor this, see how the Canadian model progresses during the day on Sunday. This is early Sunday morning, and we'll go hour by hour to see what the very latest Canadian model is depicting in terms of precipitation type. Now this time the precipitation in the form of snow, according to this model, is now just moving into the D.C. area. This is early afternoon, D.C. across to the Delmarva Peninsula region. Let's keep progressing. A few hours later, that snow has changed to perhaps some kind of a frozen precipitation period of sleet, freezing rain in the D.C. area. Snow has moved pretty much on the doorstep of Philadelphia, just to the south, perhaps of Philadelphia. This is later on in the afternoon. Let's keep progressing. By this time, it's pretty much all frozen precipitation in the D.C. area. The snow, except for the snow, sleet and freezing rain in D.C. and to points north and west. By this time, the snow has moved across eastern Pennsylvania. Now you notice we're starting to see Just rain here, just to the east of the I-95 corridor. Let's go out a couple more hours. Now by this time, pretty much from I-95 on to points south and east, it's now in the form of plain rain, but some of this snow and ice hang on for quite a while across northeastern Pennsylvania and the central part of Pennsylvania. Let's finally go out all the way to Monday morning now. Still a close call along the big cities, but really from I-95 points south and east in the form of rain, but just to the north and west, a mixed bag, a wintry mix. So it's still a close call, even in the I-95 corridor. Certainly looks like a frozen precipitation period, sleet, freezing rain, snow for several hours on Sunday. Ultimately looks like it changes over to rain, plain rain in the I-95 corridor and points south and east, but that's a close call. And the trend has been colder and colder, so we'll continue to monitor that over the next few days. That's it for now. For the SIWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.